Welcome to the Greenpoint Williamsburg Newsmagazine. Neighborhoods Today. In this edition, Dr. Leon Nadrowski reports on the next edition of Health Update. Reena Pelc then interviews Joyce Rosenthal, the New York director of the Environmental Protection Encouragement Agency, to discuss many of the environmental problems facing us. Then Chef Ralph Lupoli will tell us about a sugar-free dessert. And Angel Cappellino speaks with Dr. Sheldon Toback, principal of Junior High School 126, concerning the school's open choice program. Finally, Ed Dacey, singer and entertainer, is here to perform a song for us. And I'm Dick Mahon. The Greenpoint Williamsburg community has presently been faced with many environmental problems. One of the latest is the Sanitation Department's plan to rebuild the Noble Street Pier and use it as a staging area for garbage barges. At a meeting held at the Greenpint Savings Bank, community residents expressed their objections to that plan. I was there to cover the story, and here are some highlights. I'm with Elizabeth Ronchetti, and she is head of the Concerned Citizens of Greenpoint regarding this project for having a barge come to Greenpoint. Elizabeth, will you elaborate on that a little bit? We have some politicians here at the Greenpoint Savings Bank tonight, and I'd like to know what you folks are trying to accomplish this evening.
Right. First of all, I'm not the head of the Concerned Citizens of Greenpoint. We have 5 chairpersons. We're all equal. We're trying to stop, actually, the barges from coming into Greenpoint because they'll be carrying, as far as we know, they'll be carrying garbage, which we already have more than our fair share in this community, possibly medical waste, sludge. And we have an incinerator here, the sewage plant, and we don't want any more. As a matter of fact, I just said yesterday, enough is enough. Greenpoint is over-endowed with unbeneficial things that the city has thrown on us.
Sanitation Department spokesman Paul Gregory was also present at the meeting. Councilman Ken Fisher had some strong objections for him to take back to the commissioner.
2/3 of the garbage of the city of New York passes through Community Board 1, okay? You want to talk about treating us equally, that when you have that kind of a number distributed throughout the city, then you can start to talk to these people. And there's something else that I want to tell you. We don't believe you, okay? I never met you before. I don't mean this personally to you, Paul, but I don't believe you, and I don't believe anything that your agency says. You tell us that you'll use this pier for a while, it'll be a good neighbor, later on you'll move it. You haven't even moved the Kent Street garage. You came before the city council just a few months ago and you made 2 promises. One was that you were going to relocate the Kent Street garage as quickly as possible. The new capital budget proposal cuts the money out for that. You also told us that you were going to be parking the damn trucks inside of the facility. Promise after promise after promise. Go by there now. Go by there tomorrow. Go by there anytime, and you'll find yet another promise that the City of New York, and specifically the Department of Sanitation, made to this community and to the City Council, and a promise that hasn't been kept. I'm sick and I'm tired of listening to it. I don't mean to raise my voice, and I'm not mad at you personally because you haven't lied to me yet, but your agency has lied to this community and to me over and over and over again. So I want to tell you what I'm going to do, okay? Because Steve Cohn intends to bring a lawsuit, and I'd be happy to help on that. I have already spoken to the chairman of the Finance Committee of the City Council to ask him to take the money out of the capital budget for this. The mayor has told us that we have to cut back on our capital spending. There are desperately needed projects. I'd rather put the money into a school, okay? We have also introduced legislation in the council, of which I'm one of the co-sponsors, to force the Department of Sanitation to take the solid waste management plan, if and when it's ever released, to the council before it's given to the state. I also intend to introduce legislation, and as soon as we've already got the lawyers drafting it, to require that any time the city uses its property that has not been used for that purpose for 3 years or more, even if it was otherwise be an as-of-right use, to go through the ULERP process. It is inconceivable to me that you have taken a project in this community this far without making any type of formal presentation. And tell the commissioner that I'm not relying on her because I believe that she's going to be the captive of the bureaucracy on this issue. And I intend to take this up with the mayor, the deputy mayors, or anybody else that I can to make them understand that Greenpoint says we've had enough.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're meeting here tonight at the Greenpint Savings Bank, and I have with me Steve Cohn, who will make some comments regarding the barge situation that everyone at Greenpoint is so concerned about. Mr. Cohn.
Well, thanks to wonderful women like Stella Homachuk and Irene Klementovich and Elizabeth Ronchetti, who have been fighting this fight for the last few years and gotten the attention of the media and gotten the attention of the local public officials. Of course, we're opposed to this ridiculous idea, and we're going to fight it. We're going to fight it both with the budget, and we're going to fight it in court if we have to, because we're tired of Greenpoint becoming the most environmentally dumped upon community in New York State, and we're not going to allow it. We will meet with the sanitation commissioner and explain to her what the problems are. We'll ask Al Appleton, who's conducting a study, to complete that study before anything is done to further pollute the environment.
Garbage will bring you more seagulls, will bring you rats, all additional problems to your health.
In past years, environmentalists and their causes were seen as alarmists and even rabble-rousers. Today, our environmental problems are being addressed as major issues in need of solutions. But solutions cannot be resolved without awareness and education. The Environmental Protection Encouragement Agency is an international scientific advisory organization committed to finding such solutions. The group's New York director, Joyce Rosenthal, is here with Reena Marie to discuss our environment and specific issues relevant to Greenpoint and Williamsburg.
Well, Joyce, welcome to Neighborhoods Today.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for joining me. Obviously, there's an awful lot to talk about here, so why don't we just begin with what you feel are the more environmentally pressing problems facing us today?
Thank you. It's an honor to be here. I think we have a real problem here in Brooklyn and New York City, and it's a problem not just confined to New York City, with overconsumption of finite resources. I mean, basically, you can't run a throwaway society on a finite planet. And the way that we deal with our products, the way we, get so many disposables and throw them out, well, that's leading to the garbage disposal crisis in New York City, and that leads to a lot of air and water pollution, too, and pollution in other parts of the world that we don't even see here.
Exactly. Let me make this a little bit more local and bring this home to the Greenpoint and Williamsburg community, which is what this is. A 2-year study conducted by the Community Environmental Health Center at Hunter College confirmed the level of toxins and cancer-causing chemicals in the community to be 60 times the national average for a community this size. 60 times the national average. Which leads me to the next question. How would an organization like yours, the EPEA, begin to address this situation, and what might some solutions be?
Right. Well, Reena, I read that study very recently, and I think it's really appalling. I mean, it's clear that this area has a very high concentration of chemical spills. The report said that most of the emissions that were tracked in this area by that report, and mind you, that's an underestimate because it doesn't include the Greenpoint incinerator, which is a very polluting facility. It doesn't include all the car traffic. It doesn't include the sewage treatment plant. But basically, most of those emissions are fugitive emissions. That's what they're called. That means spills, and it's, production valves and leaky things, and basically volatile chemicals just being emitted into the air. So what you need to do really is, EPEA is a scientific advisory group, and we have chemists, we have chemical engineers, and you really need to go through all the facilities, all the businesses in this area. Government has a responsibility to protect the people, but it's really, the industries here themselves that are making the products like paints, that are using the chemicals and emitting them into the air, and that are profiting from them. So what you need to do is go through every facility and say, okay, change this leaky valve, change this, toxic chemical, you can substitute a more, a safer one, a more benign one for it. Look at the way they make the things they make, and it's clear that we have the technological capacity to do that, to make products and to meet human needs without dumping so many very toxic chemicals into the air, as that study showed.
Absolutely. You already mentioned another issue, which is a very pertinent issue for this community, incineration. Now, the city's response to the garbage disposal crisis has been, among other things, to expand the Greenpoint Municipal Incinerator and to construct an incinerator in the Brooklyn Navy Yard. In lieu of the findings in the Hunter College report, what kind of environmental repercussions might these additional situations pose for the community at large?
Yeah, well, I think the community here really, I'd be surprised if the residents, would accept this new facility. Incinerators are really no solution for New York City in terms of its garbage disposal crisis. And in terms of Brooklyn Navy Yard, it's very clear also that it would emit thousands of tons of chemicals into the air every year that are acid forming, form acidic gases, heavy metals, chemicals that are ecotoxic, that damage the immune system, that are neurotoxic. I mean, in other words, it's bad for your health. And, it's pretty clear this is already a heavily impacted area. So rather than build incinerators, there's a coalition of environmental groups that are advocating more waste reduction, more recycling, and more environmentally friendly ways of dealing with the massive amount of garbage we produce here. And, let's invest in these much safer technologies and practices first, like other cities are doing in this country, rather than invest hundreds of millions of dollars in the incinerator. It would be bad for this area in terms of the air quality, it would be bad for the whole city in terms of the money spent, and it's no long-term solution.
So then, if incineration really is not environmentally sensible, let's talk about some viable alternatives. What are some of the alternatives?
Well, the city's new solid waste management plan underestimates the amount of recycling and waste reduction that can take place. If you look at what New York City is generating, about a third of it is packaging. And we see in other cities they have different ways of addressing this part of the waste stream. For example, in German cities now, packaging is explicitly, by law, it has to be recycled or reduced or reused. And that's the approach you have to take. There's a lot of disposables in New York City too, and the city government hasn't taken the initiative to make certain, reuse and reuse things. For example, I'll give you a couple examples of that. There's an intensive recycling zone in Brooklyn that is really one of the best things the Department of Sanitation has done. It's
Park
called
Slope?
That's right. You've heard of it.
Yes, I have.
And they have recycling rates now of 35%, participation rates of 80 to 90%. It's way above the city average, and that's only with a year of effort. So what concerned citizens are asking the city government to do is imitate this intensive recycling zone and really expand it citywide to take in certain materials like food waste. The city's plan doesn't target that. They don't have any plans to recycle bulky waste. Yet they don't have repair and reuse centers. There's a lot of materials that should be speeded up for implementation. There's a state law that calls for up to 50% recycling and 10% waste reduction, and the New York City right now is advocating making that law come into effect later. In other words, right now city lobbyists are in Albany saying, we can't implement this law quickly enough. So I don't understand why the city is putting so much effort into building incinerators and not as much effort into implementing real waste reduction.
Unfortunately, I've got to tell you we're out of time, but promise me you'll come back so we can talk about this a little bit more.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you, Joyce.
With our next installment of Health Update, here is Dr. Leon Nadrowski.
There are over 10 million Americans who have diabetes of various forms, and they're usually of the hereditary type. They're categorized in two different forms. the insulin-dependent diabetes and the non-insulin-dependent diabetes. Now, the person who has uncontrolled diabetes usually has 5 symptoms that are very typical. The person usually has thirst, urinary frequency, dry mouth, hunger, and loss of weight. With these symptoms, you'll find that the patient has really a high blood sugar. Now, not everybody does have these symptoms. So a person may have diabetes without these symptoms, and the only way to make a diagnosis is to have a blood sugar test, and that's a fasting blood sugar. And if on 2 occasions the blood sugar is 140, that means that patient has diabetes. And the normal is between 70 and 110. What are the complications of diabetes when diabetes is uncontrolled? They're very serious complications, extremely serious, like blindness, kidney failure, gangrene of toes and feet which require amputation, early strokes, early heart attacks. And in diabetics, invariably, those who are uncontrolled get loss of sensation in their extremities, their feet and their toes. They can get an ulcer there and not even know that it's there, get infected so badly that they require an amputation. However, all of these complications can be avoided by good control of your diabetes, by seeing a doctor and controlling the diabetes with the help of a doctor. All of these serious complications can be avoided by controlling the diabetes. And a person could live a normal life just as someone who doesn't have diabetes.
We're happy to have with us our master chef, Mr. Ralph Lupoli from Fanciful Feastings. Always good to see you. I know you have special stuff for us when you come.
It's my pleasure.
Good.
As you know, Dick, I have gotten so many requests for sugar-free desserts, and thanks to a wonderful error, I found one that tastes good.
Right.
I was making some lasagna, and I had leftover ricotta cheese. And generally, I make a very rich mousse with ricotta cheese, and what I did this time is I put it in the blender, and I just let it go. And I've tried it since, and you really have to blend it for about 5 minutes so it's thoroughly, thoroughly smooth. And instead of putting sugar in it, I put in a banana, and I put in some strawberries. I put in a dash of nutmeg, and it perks it up a little bit. And I want you to taste it.
Sure, we love to. No sweetener, just fruit and the cheese.
Just fruit and cheese. I don't see why you couldn't use any kind of fruit you want. Okay. I just had bananas and strawberries on. Well, as you well know, the strawberries are trademark, so try that and tell me what you think about it.
I will.
If you're interested, it could also be fat-free, because several of the ricotta companies now are making a fat-free product. So you can reduce the calories. It could be just taste good.
It looks awfully rich.
Have a napkin in case you dribble.
Okay, we'll do. All right, let's put it to the test.
Okay.
That's light. Nice.
Isn't that wonderful?
Yeah, excellent.
You really have to enjoy it if you want something that's sugar-free and just tastes good. Use strawberries, bananas, use anything.
Right.
You know, I've got some here, and
nice fruit flavor.
Why don't we sit back and listen to Ed Dacey? You know, Ed has been with us before, and he was a detective. I don't know if you knew that, didn't you?
Yes, he's a Brooklyn fellow too.
Right, and he's been in show business for 15 years. He's done such things as All My Children and Law and Order on television. He's appeared in Goodfellas and Sea of Love in the movies. He's done Carousel. I wonder what part he did in Carousel. And Man of La Mancha, and he's just absolutely fabulous, and we're so pleased that he's with us tonight. So while we enjoy our dessert, let's listen to Ed Dacey.
Here we go. Excellent, Ralph.
To dream the impossible dream, to fight the unbeatable foe, to bear with unbearable sorrow, to run where the brave dare not go, to right the unrightable wrong, to love pure and chaste from afar, to try when your arms are too weary to reach the unreachable star. This is my quest to follow that star, no matter how hopeless, no matter how far, to fight for the right without question or pause, to be willing to march into hell for that heavenly cause. And I know if I'll only be true to this glorious quest, that my heart will lie peaceful and calm when I'm laid to my rest. And the world will be better for this, that one man scorned and covered with scars still strove with his last ounce of courage to reach the unreachable star.
This year, John Erickson Junior High School 126 begins a cultural education program. Angel Cappellino is here with the school's principal, Dr. Sheldon Toback, to explain.
Many of our viewers are probably surprised to see me sitting behind this desk because, well, most of my stories take me out on location. However, I am very excited to be here tonight because our next guest is going to talk about an issue that is very important to me as a parent, and that is the much-needed cultural education for our community children. So I'm honored to introduce to you a fellow advocate of the arts, as well as the principal of John Erickson's Junior High School 126, Dr. Sheldon Toback.
Hi.
Thank you for being here, and it's very comfortable, and we're all set, and with that, we're going to get right to it, okay, because we have so much to cover. First, one of the major changes for Junior High School 126 this September is that you will be participating in the Open Choice program. Can you explain what the program means and what the benefits will be for the community children?
Okay, in short, the Open Choice program is not a new program, but to make it very concrete, gives parents an option of sending their children to any public school in the city of New York, as long as there's room there. That provides them with chances to review the programs the schools have, their academic program and their arts program. And more I see a parent making wiser choices, and we think it's a wise choice to consider John Erickson Junior High School.
It also keeps the school on its toes. The parents would like to, well, talking about keeping schools on their toes, well, Junior High School 126 has always excelled in the academic as well as some of the creative areas. So what we're going to talk about now is some of those new and exciting directions that the school will be taking in the fall.
Well, we have a variety of programs, and I'll quickly identify some and then I'll focus on one. We have a marvelous dance program that's been celebrated throughout the city. We have an excellent band, and we have a super art program. The art program, we're about to move into a school as a museum program, which students will display their own work. We're going to have a French chef program as well, in which some of the great French chefs in the city will be visiting our school to demonstrate cooking. And that might make boys think that being a chef or being a pastry cook is not only an interesting course of study, but a lucrative one.
Right.
In addition to that, we have a great media program. We're developing a state-of-the-art program in media, and we'll give children an opportunity to learn how to use a camera and to write scripts. And we just think we're going to just have so many options available for parents, it'll be irresistible.
Oh, well, It's wonderful, and it sounds irresistible to me right now. I have a few years to go. My daughter, as most of our community viewers know, attends 132. So she will be, I would say, in 4 years, be walking through the doors of 126. So I'm very excited about all the new changes. Because what concerns me as a parent is that usually in the recent years, whenever there's a budget cut, what's the first to go? There's music, there's theater, there's fine arts. So why do you think it's so imperative that you are going to extend these areas at Junior High School 126?
Well, let me say something about that. We've gone through 2 fiscal crises in the city of New York, in the 70s and more recently the present. We consider it a high priority to maintain the arts and creative programs in the school for one reason, several reasons really. It helps students to develop a sense of self-esteem. In addition to that, it gives them a chance to develop self-expression. They learn to work with other children, because many of the arts, they have to operate in combination. And more importantly, it functions like the soul of education. Mm-hmm. And it lends what I think is a vital component, that's humanity, to the school. So we're saying to parents, come on down, visit our school. We have an open house every day, and you'll find that John Erickson is the best choice for you.
Wow. Dr. Novak, we're running out of time, so I have to thank you for being with us tonight. But as you know, I had the pleasure of spending time in your school. And just to tell our viewers, I must say that 126 possesses the most dedicated and most delightful staff I have ever worked with. And they also have a wide variety of very bright and interesting students. And of course, a most caring and innovative principal. And now you put all that together with all of these new programs, and the future of 126 looks very bright indeed.
Thank you.
Good night, and thanks for being with us.
Thank you.
That's it for this edition. For Neighborhoods Today, I'm Dick Mahon. Thank you for watching.